Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's podcast. Season 8, episode 21, our special National Signing Day podcast. I'm John DiCarlo. Got the full house again. Kyle Gauss, Javon Edmonds, Hayden Steele. What's up, gentlemen? How you doing?
I don't know. The weather outside is awful today.
It's gonna get worse.
Would you call it frightful? But is there a fire inside that's so delightful?
It makes you just like not want to do anything but lay in bed all day, you know?
Hayden got my Christmas song joke.
Yeah, I got it. It just, not even feeling Christmassy with this weather. Like if it were snowing, sure, but it's not even snowing.
I think it's supposed to be the coldest Christmas since 1989. The year of both me and Taylor Swift being born. So I brought coldness into this era. I will take coldness out of this world.
1989, I was at Lionville Junior High, looking awkward, I'm sure.
I mean, how do I cuff my jeans?
Exactly. Well, I don't know. Caden and Javon weren't of this world yet. They were just preparing their journalism brains, ready to hit the ground running.
Biologically, that's not how that works. They were not.
No, I know. It was 9, so I don't think I was even processed at that point.
I don't know. I'm just
if you want to get into like anatomy, one of the gross things that people always say is like your grandmother, like your grandmother had you in her, which is I don't like to think about those things. As far as I'm concerned, they come out with opinions, hard opinions. They yell at you a lot. I get yelled at all the time, but my son, my daughter's an angel.
What, you're getting yelled at now?
You just made me sprain a brain cell thinking of the math on this one. And I think
when your mom was in the womb, like when your mom was a child in her mom's womb, she already had all of her eggs. So you were inside your grandmother as well. Like they are born, like they have all their eggs. This has been health class.
Yeah, it took me back to 7th grade. Thanks for the nostalgia.
I have a health class story. I think I've told this before. Of when I was growing up, there was a girl whose like grandfather was the superintendent of our school district, and he kept like skipping her. So like she was like 9 years old in 7th grade, and it all came to fruition in 7th grade when they were like, "We cannot show you how this health class stuff. Like you need to just go outside and like color."
Yeah,
so came back to bite her.
Go outside and wear earmuffs.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Famous, we got a full slate of good football recruiting stuff for you guys. We've got some audio from Temple's coordinators, Danny Langsdorf, the offensive coordinator, DJ Eliot, the defensive coordinator. Got a clip from Stan Drayton as well in the mailbag. Not going to be talking hoops today. We realize there is a struggling, to say the very least, Temple basketball team. Not going to be talking about them. This is going to be a football recruiting National Signing Day centric podcast for you guys. Famous number 21s. I got one. Kyle, you jumped the gun on one famous number 21, I think a couple weeks ago.
I don't know. Jagger Gardner.
There you go. Not who I was thinking of, but what's that?
I said, well, of course, Embiid would be, like the top of that list right now.
Yeah.
Eric Allen.
Caden's always good for like late 80s era Eagles.
First, that was like 3 months ago. You're talking about Clemente?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a while ago.
I don't think it was 3 months ago. I think it was like a few episodes ago.
Which, that could be a month.
Could be. Nick Markakis.
That's a
love Nick Markakis.
Kyle, I know you would appreciate that.
So I think if Nick Markakis had stuck around and gotten to like 3,000 hits, it would have been really interesting. Like, does he make the Hall of Fame? Because if you get 3,000 hits, you make the Hall of Fame, right? But Nick Markakis was not a Hall of Fame player.
Very good. Couldn't stay healthy.
Very good. Locker room presence. Adapted because he was a power hitter early on, like he was like a 30 homer guy, and he kind of just became like that 15 homer guy because he had to adjust.
Good lefty swing.
Yeah, I love Markakis. Deion Sanders,
Coach Prime.
I have a few more Eagles ones: Leotis McKelvin, Josulio Hansen, and a bunch of Hansen.
I don't know those players.
Can we shout out John for not leaving us for Coach Prime when he went to Colorado? Because I definitely thought he'd get poached.
What exactly? I mean, I can't remember what interview he did. I've been sucked into all these interviews he's doing where he talks about everyone having to play their role and going above and beyond. Like, what would he have recruited me for? Like, you have to be the best. What would he have organized, like a hostile takeover of Colorado's rival site? And he'd be like, you got to do your part.
John, you need to make the best baked macaroni and cheese for our cafeteria. You're like, okay, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Don't do this.
Tim Duncan, Charles Woodson, Jimmy Butler,
Tim
Kevin
Duncan.
Garnett, Dominique Wilkins, LaDainian Tomlinson. We missed a lot. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Are you just going
all the stories that have been coming out about how like Kevin Garnett didn't understand like how the NBA worked the first year, and he was just like talking shit to Jordan for like 4 other players has been great. Like he was just talking shit like 4 other Timberwolves like when they were dropping on Jordan, and then Jordan would just destroy them.
J.R. Ryder tried to tell him not to do it too.
New York Giant turned sort of reality TV guy, Tiki Barber.
You know what? So that's a good example of like people like the knee-jerk reaction to Tiki Barber is like he had fumbleitis and it ruined his career. He got over the fumbleitis.
Yeah.
Like he had like a 2-year stretch where like he had fumbled a lot, and then he had like 1,800-yard seasons after that. But people just remember like there was a 18-month stretch where he fumbled the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Who was better, him or Rondé? I think Tiki was better than Rondé Barber.
Rondé Barber just hurt Eagles fans.
Yeah, sure.
A big
but
way.
so did Joe Juravicius. Like that doesn't make up.
Yeah.
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore's. Did you see the video of Frank Gore's son after they won their bowl game?
No.
Yeah.
He's on the field. He's on the field. His auntie comes in. It's like, yeah. He's like, auntie, chill. There's like boom to the side.
Really?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Patrick Peterson.
That's
Patrick.
Yeah.
Still in the Vikings, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Baseball one for you, Kyle. 1960 to 1975, sub 3 ERA, over 2,300 strikeouts, over 240 wins.
Big leg kick.
All-star.
Big leg kick. Juan Marichal.
Good job, John.
Yeah, good for you, John. I would have never gotten there.
Yeah.
Mr.
I promise I didn't look that up.
21's a good one.
Yeah, Marichal,
Okay.
Steroid Clemens.
That's good. There's a Raiders player that's known for Stickum. Award 21.
Cliff Branch.
Cliff Branch, yep.
Yes. When we would, I know that because my dad was a old school Raiders fan. And then when we were growing up, if you were playing football in the street or in someone's yard and you didn't have the space, and if you threw a pass and it got knocked down by a tree, we would always say, knocked down by Cliff Branch. And we thought we were really funny.
I can't think of Stickum without thinking of I can't think of Stickum without thinking of the replacements.
Michael Cooper, Don Sutton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Warren Spahn.
Dave Bing, Andy Pettit, if we want to count him as great. Not
I think
great,
Andy Pettit's great.
Okay.
Is that just because he left Baltimore? I'm thinking Mike Mussina. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think Pettit's still great.
I think of Pettit as like in the scene where he came out to get Mariano Rivera. Wasn't it Girardi who sent them? Like, yeah, you're going to go get him to take him out of the game for the last time.
Which, are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, he sent Joe Girardi I guess it was Girardi sent Jeter and Pettit out to get.
No, I know he did it, and I'm sure they just kind of like whatever. But like, isn't it supposed to be the manager?
Yeah, sure.
Because like you never even see like the pitching coach like make that decision. It's always the manager comes out.
Yeah.
We're about 9 minutes into this scoop. We have
Baseball. I got a 76er for you. One of the best names of all time. A guard, very good scorer.
21. What era?
80s.
Witherspoon?
Tony was 22. Andrew Tony was 22.
It's not going to be World Be Free, is it?
There you go.
World Be Free's, I don't know, is his third wife? I don't know. I used to work with one of his wives, and he would just show up. Like when I was like a student worker, like she worked at the Temple Hospital, and she would just show up, and he would like look around, like wait for students to come and like kiss his ring. And like, World Be Free's here.
Covered like several.
Sam Newman will appreciate.
What's that?
Sam Newman will appreciate Carlos Delgado.
Another great.
Sleepy Floyd.
Did he make the Hall of Fame, Delgado?
I don't think so.
I think he had like 407. He's going to fall into that. If we're supposed to make this a Hall of Fame podcast, like 473 homers gets you into Fred McGriff territory, where it's like it's going to take you like 20 years to get in because you finished with 20 less homers than you should have.
Mm-hmm. Have we said Jeff Kent?
Jeff Kent, not a Hall of Famer.
There's
Yeah.
there's another former Sixer, Thaddeus Young.
Oh, God.
Thad Young. Oh,
Georgia Tech.
yes. Anyway, Temple football recruiting.
I don't know what Thad Young did not require. He was a good player just on
No,
some
he
bad
was.
teams.
He was. I know. I
Just,
know.
I have bad 2K memories of Thaddeus.
Yeah, but he was just like, it was that stretch of the Sixers where like he was clearly like the best player on those teams. It's just bad Sixers teams.
Yeah.
So Temple added. So again, as of Thursday afternoon. So Temple added 25 players on National Signing Day yesterday. So it was 20 high school players, 2 JUCO players, and then 3 transfers. Again, just a reminder, you can check out our Countdown to Signing Day series if you want to read a lot of our coverage on some of the players that signed from the class. We'll have another story coming up on Zael Powell from Rymir Vaughn that you can check out. And we have coverage up yesterday of a full transcript of Stan Drayton's signing day press conference. You can listen to the audio on the site as well. But yeah, 25 guys coming in at the time that Stan Drayton spoke. They had not yet received the signature of Melvin Siani, but he has now signed. And again, a reminder, and we'll, if you listen to the audio, you'll hear this. Again, there is a later signing period, February 1st. Stan Drayton did say that they could sign a handful of additional players, whether that is in February or maybe taking some guys after spring ball to see what some of their positional needs are. But again, we got a lot to get into here. Again, some good audio, just taking a breakdown of the class and everything. But before we get into that, guys, just Caden, I'll start with you, given your passion for covering recruiting and again, your mad scientist approach. Again, we will never forget when you sat down at the table at the link before one of the games last year. And I think you said, well, I think I have a problem. Didn't you say you had a problem? You thought you were addicted to covering recruiting. What was the exact quote?
Yeah, I feel like something along those lines. I got
something like that.
probably too much into it, but it turned out.
ABC, Caden. Always be recruiting.
Didn't you come to me once? You're like, I've talked to 25 guys over the last week. I was like, dear Lord.
That was when we had to tell Caden, like, Caden, love that you're doing that.
Some of these guys aren't going to.
We gotta tighten this up. Like, you're wasting a lot of your energy.
Rod Carey's last year, but Caden, I'll start with you first. Like, again, there's obviously a ton to get into with this class. Just your overall, just Cliff Notes version of like just your overall takes of the class. A good class. You think they addressed what they need to address? What's your day after impression of what they were able to do yesterday?
Yeah, I thought, a pretty good class. Like we talked about before we came in, Kyle said, I think Rivals ranked them number 5 of group of 5 schools. And then from an overall position perspective, I thought they replenished the offensive line. And I have no idea if these guys will be good or not in 1 to 2 years. But they got Luke Watson, who's a 6'5", 270-pound guy, offensive tackle. Same with Kevin Terry, who's another 6'5" guy. And then they added Diego Barges. I don't know how to say it.
Barajas. Yes.
From
Diego
Laney
Barajas.
College.
I'm terrible with names, but he's 6'6" as well. So they added a ton of size up front, which I thought was needed. You needed to replenish that area. And then I think they hit wide receiver pretty hard. They were able to keep Richard Dandridge, which I thought was a big get for them. And then at the same time, they went through the portal and got Dante Wright, who's been a proven wide receiver and returner in the Mountain West. So I thought they did a good job at the wide receiver position. And then at running back, Stan talked about yesterday, he seemed really high on Jaquez Smith. And he also talked about Kyle Williams, his versatility next year. So that's 2 guys right there. I think of all the players in this class, they could make the quickest impact.
Mm-hmm.
Laney College was the start to whose defensive coordinator career?
Which college?
Laney College, the JUCO that Diego Barajas is from.
Phil
was
Snow?
the first defensive coordinator spot for Phil Snow in like the late 70s. Oakland. It was also on Last Chance U.
Yes. Javon, what do you think of the class?
I'm very impressed by the prospects of I want to make sure I say his name right. So if he winds up listening to this podcast, which all Temple recruits should, since we're probably
it's actually part of orientation. They
since
show up on
we're like the
campus.
first ones to give you your media spotlight and your stories. The least you could do, hit the subscribe button. Gensley August from West Orange High School, 3-star, pulled his commitment from Georgia Tech. Shout out Jeff Collins, I guess. Had offers from JMU, Louisville, Maryland, Syracuse, VT, West Virginia. 6'5", 280, can play that, 3-tech spot on the defensive line gives Temple some more size right there. I don't think we talked enough during the season about, they need some more heavies to help stop the run. The run defense just wasn't as bad as Rod's team. I think it got maxed up more by the pass rush, though. So, kind of ignored that deficiency, but they need help stopping the run. So you hope in a year or two, he's one of those guys who can fill in there. I'm with Caden on the offensive line. I do feel like they brought in some good size. It's just about mobility and technique on if those guys are going to work out. And Jordan Montgomery, big pickup, going to be one of those, apparently, according to Drayton, one of those outside linebackers who they mix up and rushing the passer and then dropping back into coverage in that 3-4 scheme. So I like the class, and of course our people at Rivals do, putting them 5th in the group of 5.
Yeah. I think that part that Javon just said about in a year or two is important. I mean, I think you can look at a couple, like you can look at Joquez Smith and go, okay, maybe there's a role there. Kyle Williams, maybe there's a role there. Richard Danbridge, maybe there's a role there. For the most part, I just think this roster needs such like an influx of talent. Like you just like, I think one of the questions people have asked is like, do you think they did a good job of targeting like positions of needs? I think this entire roster was a position of need. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think they're ever at the point where they can be like, okay, you know what, maybe like we feel like we're good at linebacker with whatever, Kobe Wilson, Jordan McGee, Evandy Ring. We don't need to bring an inside linebacker in. Like, no, I think they need to bring linebackers in. I think they need to bring everybody in. They need to build this program the right way. I think the way that they're going to get those kind of like instant plug and play guys are like Tywan Francis hasn't been announced yet, but from Colorado State, who started at safety for Colorado State. Dante Wright, I think, is a plug and play guy. Like I think they're using the transfer portal to kind of like plug in those spots and put fingers in holes in the dam and figure it out. But I think they did a good job with like high school prep, JUCO talent of also just like bringing in that next wave. We're not going to know if Eric King, Melvin Ciani, who might have the biggest ceiling of them all, Kevin Terry, Luke Watson, we're not going to know if they're good until like 2025. Like until then, it's just kind of like develop. And I think you've noticed some areas where the cupboard might have been left bare in that aspect from the previous regime.
A couple other things that stand out to me. Number one, just the amount of action there was in the 11th hour, in the last like 24 to 48 hours. The guys that they added, whether it was Jordan Montgomery, whether it was JUCO guy like Ben Asuike, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, who they were really impressed with. Again, you'll hear the full interview that we have with DJ Eliot, but DJ really loves him, says he has a 3.75 GPA, comes from a great family, was a COVID senior, a guy whose recruitment was kind of affected by COVID, and a guy that could potentially play right away. And they didn't have to lean too much on the portal, like Kyle said. A lot of plug and play guys, but this wasn't, not that we ever really thought this was going to be the case, but really, again, 3 transfers, 2 JUCO guys, the rest of them, 20 high school players. So for now, they're staying true to, yes, we want to win. Yes, we realize that instead of being 3-9, this could have been a 5-7, 6-6 team that could have been bowl eligible. But like I think we've agreed that even if they were, more power to them, but they just would have been covering up a lot of deficiencies. But a lot of young talent here. They're not looking necessarily for a quick fix. I was impressed with the fact that they were able to get, 20 high school guys in this class. And really, I mean, so they lost in terms of decommitments. Cole Skinner decommitted, committed to and signed with USF. Nathan Stewart, again, if you've been following along with this, you know that Nathan Stewart and Anthony Baxter, who verbally committed to Temple, did not sign yesterday. This is where recruiting coverage gets interesting. Now, Nathan Stewart, Caden, he told you yesterday he's planning to sign in February. Anthony Baxter was part of a signing day ceremony that he had at his high school yesterday in Fort Myers, Florida, but Temple has not announced him as a signee. So, we'll see what happens there. But overall, again, I think they addressed a lot of positions of need and got some local guys, obviously, as well, too. Again, they had they had come on, geez. the kid from Northeast High School, Tyrese Whitaker. Sorry,
Tyrese Whitaker.
Tyrese Whitaker, and then again the late addition of Jordan Montgomery, who had several Power Fives during the duration of his recruitment. And again, I'm going to go against what we've been talking about, and Kyle again makes a good point. Javon makes a good point. You'll know more in a year or two, even 3, how good this class is really going to be in terms of what's really, any program can say it's a developmental program, but Temple definitely has to be. Having said that, they do need, and we'll play this clip in the mailbag because I think one of our mailbag questions involves how many starters or potential starters did you think they got? Did you think they get in this class? I'll go around the horn here. Give me a name from this class on each side of the ball that you think we might be talking about next season as a guy who's making a significant impact. And by significant impact, I don't mean that they have to be, first team all conference or anything like that, but a guy that's going to make a difference right away next season on each side of the ball.
I'm hopping in so I don't have to think. Dante Wright, Taiwan Francis, the Colorado State transfers, I think, are instant starters.
Okay, so Kyle, you stole my Dante Wright. I'm going to go Alan Hay on defense, though, the Miami D tackle. I think he'll be what Jaquavian Mahone was coming out of Kentucky. Offensively, give me Kyle Williams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. That leaves me with not a lot of players that I guess I'll go with Jacquez Smith. Stan Drayton seemed really high on him. I like one of his responses.
Have you seen his film, Caden?
Have you seen his film? Yeah.
I'm not worried about how tall he is.
Yeah. Question about a certain amount of size from a certain reporter at yesterday's press conference, but Jacquez Smith seems like a player that could make an instant impact. Is, only 5'8", was a really productive player in Florida and was a 3-star recruit. And then on defense, I guess I'll take a shot, and maybe just because I don't see them having a true number 2 corner on the outside, maybe a guy like Caleb Barnett, because he has the speed that they're looking for, could surprise. I know he hasn't played football for a long time, but maybe just, from his athletic perspective that he can make an impact, at least on special teams.
I've never understood, and I'm mad nobody got on the horn to tell me about this. I've never understood being concerned about a short running back.
No.
Do you not know how much of a luxury a short running back is? A Darren Sproles, a Ray Rice, a Danny Woodhead, a Rex Burkhead. Like, those guys squeeze through the line. They normally got great hands and can catch out of the backfield. They got quick feet, good hips, low center of gravity, change of direction and change of pace off the charts. Like, a short running back is personally, like, if I were a high school football coach, that's my dream, is to have a short running back. 5'8" is like perfect. 5'8", 5'9" is like perfect running back size. Why is that a question?
Get yourself a short king. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, it's the one position, right? That, like, it doesn't matter.
Javon loved that. Javon is cracking up. I wish you guys could, our listeners could see the video. Javon is just cracking up here.
Man.
Drayton made the comment about they wanted to get like longer at certain positions, like tight end, like Peter Clark is. You're taking him because he's 6'6", and you're hoping
he can block on the perimeter.
Yeah, you're hoping things to figure out. But like wide receiver and running back, like I don't care about that, to be honest, all that much. Like I think they have some size at wide receiver if like Dwan Mathis works out or Ian Stewart. Like for the most part, it's just get productivity out of those positions. And there a guy, EJ Wilson, the FIU transfer, I know that might have raised some eyebrows as to why they took him, because he didn't have the most successful career at FIU so far. But I think the difference is that he just knows how to play college football. And for the most part, outside of Edward Sadie now, like nobody else in that room knows how to play college football. So I think it's just, I think they're building a program to the point that they're like, I think they realize that they have the chance to be kind of okay next year. Like I don't think a bowl appearance is out of the question next year, especially considering you're losing like 3 losses in UCF, Cincy, and Houston. You're adding, Charlotte and FAU. So like I think it's possible to get bowl. I think they realize the best chance for them to do that is they need to have depth these positions. It can't, even if Edward Sadie holds on to his starting job and all this stuff happens and he goes down week 4, like you can't just be like, well, now we have to rely on a freshman. Like I think they're filling it up. Last year they did that by relying on JUCO players a lot. This year they have a full recruiting cycle that they were able to kind of dig in other places.
Yeah.
Wilson actually, like, his yards per carry are encouraging too. So it's not just a completely out of the blue type of transfer,
And he can return kicks. Drayton was like, he averaged like 19 yards a return. I was like, that's not that great of a number, but yeah, he can return kicks. You're bringing other guys that can return kicks, like Daryl Sweeten, who they flipped from.
Dante Wright was a first team or second team All Mountain West returner on punt return.
So it feels like they're adding a lot of stuff like in things. Like those are things that like it's when you don't have a deep team is when you start seeing guys in positions like that, like or gunner on punt defense, like where they're forced to play guys that probably shouldn't really be playing that because they don't have the depth elsewhere and they can't put their starters in. And like this is how you build a complete program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you guys took a lot of the good names here. And again, if you check out our Countdown to Signing Day series, you can read a lot about these guys. Kyle talked to to Jordan Montgomery from Roman Catholic. We've got stuff on Peter Clark from Liam Gianelli. Caden, you talked to Kevin Terry, one of the offensive tackles that they're really high on. Johnny Zwizlak talked to Conlon Green. Liam also talked to Kyle Williams. We got stuff on like Max talked to Jaquez Smith. Max also talked to Richard Dandridge. We've got stuff on Luke Watson. So you can read a lot about these guys, and we're going to continue to get you.
I want to tell a quick tidbit from the Jordan Montgomery story that did not make it into the story.
Sure.
When I was interviewing him, I asked him, I was like, hey, because he was on that last official visit where they got 11 commitments in the span of like 18 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, when you were on there, did you kind of get the vibe that like all these kids were coming to Temple? He said, honestly, the opposite. He's like, everyone was loving it. We're all having a great time. We're vibing. He goes, but I would talk to people and they'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to commit, like blah, blah. Like, and he's like, next thing I know, everybody committed. So I don't know if that's a result of like, once the players got home, they realized like the opportunity they had in front of them, or if Temple did a good job of like sealing the deal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after a visit. I don't know. But he was just like, yeah, he's like, people like weren't telling me they were going to commit. And then 36 hours later, they committed.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Yeah. I want to add this in with Drayton. I think Drayton kind of set the bar high for the rest of Temple's coaches in the other sports, where it's like, this is what this guy just did in his first recruiting cycle. And granted, it's all on paper right now.
Right.
Have to see how they turn out on the field. But this kind of sets the bar of, hey, can recruit kids here. Don't want to hear any excuses about it at this point.
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. When you just said with like this is all on paper. There are 130 head coaches in America right now that think they have a good signing class. Like everybody thinks that they hit it every year because like they recruited those guys. But like I just get a better feeling about this class than I did the past 3, 4, 5 classes.
Yeah, and again, I think some of it starts from the fact that they got back to being more dedicated to camps. They really, in terms of a footprint, they were able to get 2 of the better players from the city, in Tyrese Whitaker and Jordan Montgomery. You're not going to get like the, Jeremiah Trotter's kids of the world and like guys that are going to go to big time Power 5 programs. But you got some good players from the city. You got 5 or 6 kids from Florida. I think
I consider that part of their footprint. Like they've recruited Florida.
They've always considered part of their footprint. And, a kid like, if you're following like the recruitment of like Richard Dandridge, and who was, Stan said yesterday, he's like, look, he really inwardly never really wavered. He always seemed impressed with the school. When he talked to Ryan Wright a couple weeks ago, Rivals national recruiting analyst, he acknowledge, he was like, yeah, some other programs are trying to flip me. And I'm paraphrasing this. He's like, we'll see where I end up. So yes, he did leave it a little vague. I don't really hold that against the kid, but they held on to him. And, Stan didn't go player for player, but one of the anecdotes he shared yesterday was like, yeah, I thought I was going to have a relaxing night watching Temple basketball. That seems to be a bit of an oxymoron lately. Sorry. But, he said he's at the Temple Maryland Eastern Shore game. And they said, yeah, I had to step out in the concourse, handle some last minute phone calls, which in a good way makes you feel good that you're holding on to some guys that people.
I mean, that's nothing new. I have a memory of 2016 where we saw Evan Cooper now in Nebraska have to do the same thing, like within EO to keep Freddie Johnson coming here. Like those things happen. Like college football is wild. It literally comes down to the last minute. Get him. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you really only lost, again, where we're not sure, what's going to become of, does Anthony Baxter sign? Like, does Baxter sign? Does Nathan Stewart sign? We don't know at this point exactly what's going on with them, but they really didn't have, for a 3-9 team in a world of the portal and NIL and stuff, they really didn't, the losses really in terms of signings were very, very minimal. In terms of my guys, you guys took a lot of the good players, it would be easy to point to Jaquez Smith or Kyle Williams. Obviously, Ed Sadie had one game this season that was good. I mean, really, really good, obviously against USF, but otherwise things are wide open at running back. I have a feeling that you're going to see, and I'm sure they will be hoping for the same thing, one of these offensive linemen, as much as that's really a developmental position. I think you got to have, sure, it would be easy to say that you got to get something out of Diego Barajas because he's a JUCO player. They probably will. You got a lot of players to replace on that line between Adam Klein, Isaac Moore. Everybody has to stay healthy. They had so many injuries on that line. I think one of these guys is going to play a lot. Maybe it is a kid like Eric King who has guard size already. Maybe it's him.
I find it funny that I think Langsdorf or somebody, maybe it was Langsdorf, must have been told, he's like, oh, you usually like to like start him at tackle, and if they can't figure it out, you move him inside the guard. And everybody with Eric King has been like, well, yeah, he's a guard. Like I was like, we're putting him in guard.
Yeah. And then on defense, maybe a guy like Sweeting, like Darryl Sweeting. There were a couple guys yesterday they talked about. It's like this guy really, he can be a returner right away. And again, Sweeting was a former USF commit. Stan said yesterday they had to fight to get him once they flipped him. I think on defense, either him or Ben Asike, because again, they really, or it could be like Caden said, Caleb Barnett hasn't been playing football a long time, but he's super fast. So they're gonna need some guys to step up in this class, regardless of how young they might be.
That part you just said, the speed aspect, which, I mean, let's not put this staff on like a pedestal. Like I think a lot of people have realized that Temple needs more speed to compete in this conference, but like I think that's the theme of this class, right? It's like offensive lineman at speed. Like you're adding Xavier Urban, speed. You're adding Zaheem Coleman Frazier, speed. Like Caleb Burnett, speed. Like I think they just realized like we need to just get like general speed into this program. It's the same reason like Rod Carey tried doing that and they just weren't that successful with it. But like Matt Rule had to do that his last year. He adds Randall Jones, Freddie Johnson, Isaiah Wright, Tyler Grainer.
That's why you get Robbie Anderson back into the program. You put up with what you're going to put up with
right,
Robbie.
Because like you can't teach. It's the same reason. Look, I love him as a player. It's the same reason Tyreek Hill has a career. It's the same reason people were willing to look past all the stuff that happened at Oklahoma State. Like you cannot teach 4.29 speed. So people are like, well, I'll put up with them. If I'm West Alabama, I will come take them. Like these things work out because usually speed tends to translate.
Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, if you're an owlscoop.com subscriber, you will get access to the full interviews that had the opportunity to do yesterday with Temple's offense coordinator, Danny Langsdorf, and Temple's defensive coordinator, DJ Eliot. We do want to play a brief clip from each of those interviews. So again, one of the guys that we haven't touched on yet is the quarterback that they got out of Ocean Township High School, Tyler Douglas, 6'2", 195 pounds, a dual threat guy, dealt with a shoulder injury this season, but still, put up some really good numbers for them. Of course, it's the high school program that produced Kenny Pickett, one-time Temple commit. And obviously, Temple's got a good thing going with EJ Warner, and sometimes fans say, okay, well, do you just get guys that are clear backups behind him? No, it's a year-by-year deal, and you need 2 or 3 really good quarterbacks in your system. We know this, and they're pretty high on Tyler Douglas. He verbally committed over the summer, and had a chance to ask Danny yesterday about Tyler Douglas, what he likes about him, and here you'll hear him talking about what they like about Tyler, and also beyond that, how Tyler is willing to work with and really eager to learn from EJ Warner. So we'll play this clip for you here now.
He, in my opinion, was like their whole team. Yeah. I mean, they won a lot of games this year, coming off of a tough year last year, and I mean, he carried that team, and I love that about him. He can run, he can throw, he's smart, he's competitive, and he's looking forward to working with EJ. And I love that about him. He's not afraid to compete with him, but he's also encouraged and excited about learning from him. So it says a lot about that kid. But he is a kid that can run and throw, and a very exciting prospect that way. We identified him early and have been on him a long time. And so we're excited to get to work with him.
All right. In addition to talking to Danny Langsdorf, as I mentioned, talk to DJ Eliot. We're talking about the future players coming in on this roster. And as you guys know, in a world of the transfer portal and NIL, Temple is obviously working just like most programs are to continue to re-recruit their current players. Broke some news about the current roster on our message board. So if you are not an owlscoop.com subscriber now, of course, would be a great time. Some important roster news over there that I got from DJ Eliot yesterday. But talk to DJ again about a lot of stuff. Again, if you can subscribe to the site, you'll hear that full interview. Even talked about his time away from football, doing a couple of podcasts. Real fun guy to talk to. Gave me some great stuff about a lot of the guys in this class. One of the clips we'll play here is talking about a guy in this class that wasn't super highly ranked, and his defensive stats aren't going to jump out at you because he played a multitude of positions for his high school out in the Pittsburgh area. Conlon Green, who played for Penn Trafford, and DJ talked about what they like about him, how it is kind of rare that you don't see that type of position versatility where yes, it's very, very common for guys to play on both sides of the ball, but it's not as common to see a defensive lineman go under center on the other side of it. But the guy that they're really high on, and again, if he's successful out in Western PA and they get a guy like him, it just helps them put money in the bank in terms of their recruitment there and their efforts out there. So this is DJ Eliot talking about Conlon Green and why he is excited about him.
So Conlon is the first defensive tackle I've ever signed that also started at quarterback. Mm-hmm. So he has.
Because you don't always. I mean, I know position flexibility is a thing,
Yeah.
but I guess you don't see that a ton, right?
No, very rarely do you see a guy that can put his hand in the dirt and play a 3 technique and also take snaps and throw a fade ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he has a very unique skill set, and he's a guy that we recruited early. Mm-hmm. He came to camp. He did a tremendous job at camp. We officially visited him this summer. He committed to us and stayed with his commitment, and he's since gained about 30 pounds. I mean, I think when we signed him, he was about 245, and now he's about 270. And so he's a guy that has a huge frame, has a big upside, very athletic. I mean, anybody that's athletic enough to play quarterback along with D-line, then they have a unique skill set, and we're very excited to have him.
All right, so again, I know I keep saying this, keep your eyes peeled on the site if you're not subscribed yet. Great time.
We haven't even talked about the Aussie.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the Australian punter Dante Atten from Melbourne, from the Pro Kick Academy, a guy that they're really high on.
The Adam Shire experience.
Yes,
this is his fifth straight.
Jimi Hendrix experience.
Yeah, this is his 5th straight Australian punter. So I think he told Kevin Cobb, he's like, "This is my youngest one," and he's coming as a 21-year-old freshman. He's like, "It's the youngest one I've ever coached." Because I mean, Mackenzie Morgan was 28 years old, right? Like, Corsack at Rutgers is older. So,
speaking of that,
as long as Adam Shire is at Temple, expect Australian punters.
Stan said yesterday when he was talking about Pierre Clark, and he was like, the best thing is like is Pierre Clark really 22 years old, or is
he's coming in a year older than everybody. He's coming in 21, 22, and I was like,
I didn't think
those are conflicting things.
Yeah.
I mean, usually when you deal with like European, like high school and stuff, like I think it is usually like a year, like they're usually like a year older. So he's probably like 19, 20.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think he was.
Although like the NFL Academy, like they weren't going to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like NFL Academy is just like a football thing, I thought.
One of the funnier quotes yesterday was Stan talking about Pierre Clark. And he was like, "Hey man, I see similarities between North Philly and South London. I just happen to have an accent." And then Stan goes, "Yeah, whatever it takes, baby."
Whatever you got to convince yourself to come here, man. Like, just do it.
But I mean, I think Peter Clark, I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of times, very sincere kid, and really does gravitate to Temple. And he saw it back in the spring when he came through with some other players from the NFL Academy, and then came in for his official the weekend that Temple lost their Friday night game to Tulsa. But really does. I mean, I think what Stan is, we're making light of that one quote, but yeah, Peter Clark really does genuinely speak about like, I'm a city kid, and really like Temple. So
I mean, like South London's where like Stormzy's from. Like it's not Castle's End, like high society. So like I think Stan, I would argue that Peter probably doesn't think he has an accent. He probably thinks that when I grew up with talks like me, you have an accent.
You have an accent, Stan. You don't. So we do have a few mailbag questions to get to here from our owlscoop.com subscriber message board. First one comes from Mike TB31. His question is, assuming the majority of these freshman recruits won't make an immediate impact next year, did they address our future needs? Did they address the current needs with the transfer portal? Yeah, I think they did. I think we've already talked about that. I think, they addressed the offensive line. They addressed running backs. Kyle makes a very simple but important point. I think every position on this roster is a position of need. I don't think yes, they have some good linebackers that they're excited about and have players that they're excited about, but I don't think that they would have the luxury of looking at any position on this roster saying, we're good there.
Right.
So
I think they did a good job on both ends. They brought good talent in and they kept good talent in. Like, yeah, Darian Varner leaving to Virginia Tech is a loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was an all conference defensive lineman, but like other people are staying that, like, in theory, like you could have thought about, you could look at this roster and a year ago, if they had the same caliber players a year ago, a lot of the players that are going to be playing football for Temple in the spring and the fall would not still be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like think about all the people that left over the last 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, you've only had like one so far. All that being said, and I think somebody asked this, there's going to be more roster attrition. Like it's going to happen in the spring. It'll happen in the summer. The people that are on the roster now, they won't all be here. But it seems like they've at least dodged bullets to this point. Yeah. You didn't have I don't want to pile on the guy, but whatever. Like you didn't have the like egg on your face moment where on a Wednesday, Rod Carey talks about how Chris Banks is the future of the defensive tackle program. And on a Friday, Chris Banks enters the portal. Like, you haven't had any of those moments yet. No.
And those were, it was like the beginning curve of the transfer portal, but not one of, you make a good point when Rod Carey talks about that. Fair or unfair, you think, okay, how in tune with your current roster are you, the climate of your current roster? And I agree, they haven't had moments like that.
In hindsight, you could probably make the argument that Chris Banks shouldn't have left. Like he became a rotational guy at Boston College. Like he probably should have stayed, but he didn't because
for a Boston College team that has really
wheels fell off. Yeah,
one of the teams, one of 2 or 3 programs that ran the ball. Not that he has anything to do with this, of course, but one or 2 or 3 programs in America that actually was worse at running the football than Temple was this past season.
Yeah, because you get rid of Adazio.
Yeah. Got to stay that boat now. Anyway, along the lines of this question from Mike TB31, we do want to play this clip from Stan Drayton because he was asked about this yesterday. How many of these guys can step in and play right away? And Stan had a pretty good answer that we'll play for you here, where he talks about that readiness, can you play right away, competition and everything. And, you'll hear him say here, like, hey, what do all these guys want to do? Play in the NFL. Well, if that's what you want to do, you need to be committed to doing whatever you need to do here. And I thought it was a good answer that went beyond the surface level of just like competition is king and all this stuff. So when he was asked about, do you have any potential starters here? Here's what Stan had to say on that subject.
I'm anticipating every single one of them to compete to be a starter. Yeah, they have an opportunity to come in here and earn a position. And if they are the best at their position, then they will have an opportunity to start. And, again, credit to our current football players who have helped host these guys. They know that. They were potentially hosting players that may take their position, and every single one of these players that we've signed today, if you ask them what their goal is on the football field, their end goal, what do you think they're going to say? I want to go to the NFL, right? Well, hey, in my experience as an NFL coach, we're going to draft a player, 1 year, and the next year, guess what? We're going to draft another player, all right? And it's going to be all based on what? Production, okay? But in the sense of that and during the time of that, every single one of those players in their room are getting better because the level of competition just keeps getting better. And that's what these guys are not afraid of, and, of course, somebody's going to struggle with not playing as much football as they will hope, but this is something that we address at the front door here at Temple. We are trying to create a competitive atmosphere so that if you're saying you want to go to the NFL, then understand that it's going to require a competitive environment for you to obtain that. That's the only way you're going to get better. And I promise every single one of these guys, as well as our current football players, that it is my job and obligation to make sure that I put the best talent on the football field. And hey, if it's a wash between two people, they're both going to play, and that is what these guys bought during the course of the recruiting process. So when I say I absolutely expect them all to compete for the starting position, I mean it. And our current players that are here holding what they believe are starting positions, they know they got to go continue to earn that. We wipe the slate clean, and let's go see who's going to win that war.
Two more questions here. Next one here from Temple J. Are there still opportunities on the portal? Any whispers?
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple that haven't been announced yet. Like we talked about Taiwan Francis.
Yes.
Kamara Wilcoxon from Florida has announced that he's coming. They've had a couple guys in for visits. I think they're still waiting on decisions from the Nebraska defensive tackle Marquise Black. He's still out there. He took an official visit. I think he might be a Temple lean, but I think he wants to take their commitments. Kyler Halverson, the kicker from Hawaii, who literally just tweeted as I'm doing this, but he didn't come in or I think he just tweeted a video of him kicking a 58-yard field goal. I think he's a possibility if they want to add there. I think it's just they're going to, if I had to guess when Stan said, hey, we're going to add 4 guys on offense and 1 to 2 guys on defense, I think the majority of those are going to be transfers. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's going to be many high school kids that they're unaware of right now that they didn't take in the winter. I think they're going to try to plug and play guys from the portal. Yeah,
I know he's always the convenient example, and it's from years ago. Unless you get around to May and you teleport yourself back to Al Golden's days and you think you have the next Jaquan Jarrett, you're probably not taking.
Right. They did it last year with Jacob Porter. It didn't come until May, sure, right? Yeah. But that's a situation where a scholarship shook free and they didn't have a spot for him originally, and they did, and blah, blah. I think he was originally going to go to Yale, and they flipped him. Porter seemed to be a guy that they were starting to become a little high on as a guy who really started to practice well. We'll see. That's always one of the fun. Yeah, right. He hasn't played some of the redshirt guys. Sure. Yeah. But I think for the most part, it's going to be just I think they need another wide receiver. I think they still want to add a guy on each side of the line, and then I don't know. Then you can maybe bring in a kicker or do something like that. But I think for the most part, it's just going to be transfer portal. Mm-hmm. And then maybe the 2 guys we talked about, maybe Anthony Baxter, maybe Nate Stewart, find their way at Temple. Those might be the high school guys. Yeah. Watch them sign 6 middle schoolers now after I've said that. Future Doogie Housers on the football field. Hayden, do you know who Doogie Howser is?
Yes, but I've never seen the movies.
I think it was a show.
TV show. Doogie Howser.
I also
Javon, Doogie Howser. Yes, no. Do you know?
Know the name? That's it.
Neil Patrick Harris played a little child prodigy. He was a doctor.
Yeah.
That's about it. It was the 80s, man. Yeah. 90s.
What a time to be alive.
We talked about this before. Whatever, just pick out any B and below movie on Rotten Tomatoes from 1981 to 1993, and if you describe the concept of it, the synopsis of it, it's wild. None of the movies make sense anymore. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this? All this has come back to fruition because they got featured in the video game. But did you see Tom? Have you ever seen the Tommy and the T-Rex or Jenny and the T-Rex? It was Denise Richards and Paul Walker. It's a movie. It's a movie in the early 90s where she's a cheerleader and her quarterback boyfriend gets decapitated and they put his brain inside of a Jurassic Park T-Rex and she continues to love him. Yes.
There's no way that's real.
I swear to God. Denise Richards. It's called Tammy and the T-Rex. It came out in 1994. It involves they took Paul Walker's brain and implanted it into an animatronic dinosaur. And it's Denise Richards loving the dinosaur. That's still Tommy.
Might be one of the most valuable nuggets you have ever added on the scoop. And you've had some good insight, but this is
worst case scenario. Google it. You get to see 1994 Denise Richards. It's not the worst thing in the world. The movie might be.
Last mailbag question here to close things out. Again, his official screen name is Al. We call him Al to the 8th degree.
Did you say Al 8 times?
I think I did, yeah. I mean, if I screwed up, we have to re-record this entire thing all over again. His question, how much more roster attrition do we expect between now and Labor Day? It seems like a lot of portal activity happening for us, we anticipate a constant revolving door for some percentage of our roster. What do you guys think? I mean, I know we kind of touched on this already, but what do you think?
I mean, right now, without any more additions and anything, they're like 4 or 5 scholarships over.
Right.
So like if you're taking Stan at his word, which like why wouldn't you, I guess, and they're going to add like 6 more people, then 10 people got to go. Whether that's 10 people in the recruiting class that don't make it, or whether that's a combination of people on the roster, I would think like they have to get down to 85. So there's going to be a fair amount of people. And not all of them are going to be just like afterthoughts, right? Like there's always some guy when you're like, oh, I thought he was going to project into something. I thought he was like a year away from being a player. And sometimes those guys decide they want to go play at Robert Morris or St. Francis or something instead. So
yeah,
say 10. I have a couple in mind, but I would hate to speculate on the scoop. And then that kid ends up staying. And then
you'd be a good broadcaster. I hate to speculate here, but it looks like he may lose his ring finger.
I mean, what would Jim Gardner do? And he wouldn't speculate.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
He would. I miss you, Jim
Gardner, doing his last broadcast on Channel 6 last night. Avid listener of the scoop. That's a
Question.
Yes.
Why a Wednesday night?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe
We'll talk about that on our next podcast.
I wonder if it has some like obvious sentimental value we didn't know about. Maybe he had been there for 40 years. And it was
big story tonight on the scoop is why did Jim Gardner bow out on a Wednesday night?
Maybe it's just like, look, like once you guys graduate college and you get into like the corporate world, like nobody works during these weeks anyway. So maybe he's just like, screw it. Like let's stop pretending. Like no one's gonna work on the 22nd and 23rd. Neither am I.
Yeah, Thursday night would have made sense because who watches the news on a Friday? No one watches television on a Friday night.
No, that's fair. I only watch Jeopardy on a Friday night.
Well,
there was a Jeopardy category last night or 2 nights ago called NBA teams. Easiest category in the world.
Really?
Easiest. The $1,000 question was alphabetically. This is the last. This alliterative team is the last NBA team.
The Wizards.
Yeah, the Washington Wizards. But one of them was literally like the $800 question was this team won 6 championships in the 90s.
The Bulls.
Right. Like that was the $800 question. It's just one guy was just like, just keep him calm. Like
these were like Celebrity Jeopardy-esque.
Yeah, but it was just regular Jeopardy. And then it was literally next to like Shakespeare lines. I was like, yeah, you guys are just going straight into this.
Well, we appreciate you all sticking with us for another episode. We hope that you and your family have a safe, happy, and healthy holiday season, whether you were celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, anything else. Wish you and your family the best. We know it has been a tough year for a lot of people. So we hope that 2023 will be good to you and your family. Love you guys, Kyle, Caden, Javon. Thanks for being with me here today. And I guess we'll reconvene after New Year's Day.
When's the next Olympics? January 5th, whatever.
Yeah, might as well do the 6th,
Yeah, might as well. Sam Cohen will come back.
Sam Cohen's not here anymore, so he won't be. We don't have to worry about his busy schedule.
For the first time.
Happy birthday to Sam, by the way.
Yes, it's Sam Cohen's birthday today. Shout out to Sam Cohen.
For the first time in 2 years, we'll wonder, where was Sam on January 6th?
This is a bit, by the way. Sam is a very...
No, it's not.
Yes,
he stormed our Capitol.
Sam Cohen did absolutely not storm the Capitol, but it's a fun...
Who are you going to believe?
We have. Yeah, do we truly know? I don't know.
Was anybody here with him on January 6th?
We don't know.
I don't, but I know.
Talk about that on the next episode. Anyway, thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday, and we will talk to you all soon.